Hello, boys, girls, ladies and gentlemen. It's your buddy, Mr. G, and I am here to talk to you today about layers in Photoshop. Layers in Photoshop. They're like these stackable, transparent kind of slices or sections in an image that we can move around, and they're independent of each other. Kind of like this little illustration that we have going on down here. They're like these different layers, almost like see through, like sheets of glass or something. Okay. Now we're going to learn just the basics of moving layers around here in this new assignment here. So we're going to jump over here to Photoshop real quick. Okay. I have an illustration here of a cheeseburger and several parts of a cheeseburger here. Okay. Now, this over here is my layers panel. Now, I've pulled my layers panel out. It usually exists right in there, but just like a tab in Chrome, you kind of pull those out and you can move around and arrange them. So when I have a big list like this, I like to pull these out so I can get a better view, because you can see I see a whole bunch of things in there. Okay. Now in this image here, this Photoshop image, each thing in here has its own layer. Okay. So as soon as I click on a thing, now up here I've got my move tool. So hit V on your keyboard to get your move tool so you can move items around. And I have two things selected up here. I've got auto select. That means when I click on an object, it'll automatically select that object and highlight the layer. Okay. I also have show transformation controls highlighted. That way, when I click on it, I'll see the bounding box. So those two things, the bounding box and the highlighted layer, tell me which layer I have active at any given time. So if I can either click in the layers panel on an item, like I can click on this here or click here, and you can see my box is going to jump around, or I can actually click on the item in the image. Okay, so there is our how we select layers. Okay, all right, so let's go over here and just look at the layers panel real quick. There's lots of controls up here, and we're going to kind of go through them real quick. Okay, first thing I want to notice here is we have these little pictures, right? So I picked the tomato here, and you'll see I have a little picture of the tomato, and that is the only thing on that layer, right? So I have a thumbnail with nothing else on there. First thing we can do with layers, we can hide them. We have this little eyeball here. We can poke out that eyeball and all of a sudden it disappears. I put it back, it comes back. It didn't delete it, it just hid the information. Okay, so we can go, and you can also, if you click and drag down, just click and drag, you can turn off multiple layers. And just the same, you can click and drag right over those eyeballs again and do it again. So we can hide and reveal layers by poking the eyeballs out. Okay, I'm going to stick with my tomato here. Okay, my tomato there, I can also do what's called locking the layers. Now up here at the top here, you got this lock bar right here, and you'll see several different ways to lock it, but the one I usually use is just the main lock. So if I go and I move this around right now, you can see I can move that layer around. If I lock the layer, now you'll see the bounding box disappears. I can still select it, but now I don't have the bounding box, meaning now that it's locked, I can't move it, I can't paint it, I can't change any opacity, I can't do anything to that layer while it's locked. Now to unlock it, I simply either click the lock or I click up here, and then I go right back that I can have an active layer again. Next thing on our list, we can rename layers. So if I have all these layers and they're just named, Photoshop is going to randomly name them layer one, layer two, layer three as they're created. So if I want to change it, I can simply double click on the word of that layer, and then I can type a word like tomato, and then I can rename that. And I can do that all the way down the list. And that helps you kind of get organized a little bit better. The next thing I can do, I want to talk about. So let's say I've got my burger here, and I want to put my cheese layer on top of here. Now, the way layers the way they work from the bottom up, just like a sandwich we have here. So if I want to put the cheese on top of this burger, I can drag it up here, but you can see it's underneath there. So I can't put it on top of there. Okay. So here's my cheese right there. Here's my burger up here. Let's go ahead and label that. We'll call that burger. And once we got that, now it's up here. If I want the cheese to be on top there, I have to take it up the stack and move it up there. To take it up the stack, I simply click on that layer and then I click and I drag and I just go up, and you see that little blue line is going to indicate where I'm at on the layer. And once it's above, now I've got my cheese is over top of the layer. So again, if I want to do anything else like that, like there's my onion, it's also under there. So if I wanted to put that on top of there, I would simply have to go to where the onion is, and then I would have to drag it, cancel. So layer styles, that's another lesson. Cancel and drag it above the cheese layer. Okay, so we can reorder layers. Whatever's on top is going to hide things underneath it. Okay. All right. Next thing on the thing, we can, after we reorder, we can also remove layers. We made a burger. We put onion on it. We don't want onion on there. We want that in and out of our illustration. We can take it and we can delete it. Okay. So there's a little trash can down here. So if I grab that onion and select that layer, I can just hit the little trash can, disappears. You can also take and just drag things down to your trash can as well, and that will also delete them. Or you can simply grab them and hit your delete key on your keyboard. So multiple ways for you to delete items. Next thing that we can do, we can group items. So let's say I have to make several burgers here, right? So let's say I want to take this bun here. Let's take the bun here, and we'll do, just go ahead and label that top bun. And I'm going to put it on top of my cheese. And I'm going to take my burger. I'm going to put it on top of my bun. I'm going to put my cheese. I'll put the cheese on top of there. And I'll grab my burger bun and I'll put it on top. So now I have a basic cheeseburger. We'll throw this out of the way. Okay. Now I can, what's called grouping these, or putting them in a kind of a family or a folder. Okay. To do that, I will go and I'll hold down my shift key and I'll select the layers that I would like to put into a group. Like there, I've got them all selected. And you can see down at the bottom here, I have this folder called group. Now, when I click that, it's going to put all of those things into a group. Now, you see I don't have my thumbnail anymore, but they're still there. You just click on that little folder and you can see all your little thumbnail pictures are still there, and you can still hide them and lock them and delete them and remove them and reorder them just like you could before. With the regular lawyer, this is just now in a group. Okay, so that is how you group them. Okay, alternatively, you can also grab things like this. Let's say I want to put the condiments in here. I can either hold down shift and I can select them individually, and I can grab those and I can hit the group button and put them in a group, or I can simply drag over top of them and grab those items. And as long as I have the bounding box and they're highlighted and I've got the right ones, I can go ahead and I can either do one of two things. Instead of hitting the button down there for group, I can right click and I get this big awful menu, which I kind of hate. So I very rarely use it. I can never find anything, but there is group layers. So if you hit that, that will group your layers and it asks you to name it and all that. So I just rarely use this. I much rather use the quick key, which is Command G will group things, and that will group those things right there. If you want to ungroup them, it is either right click and look for ungroup in here, which is up here, or you can simply hold down Command G is to group, Command Shift G is to ungroup. Okay. All right. So we can move on down the list. What else can we do with layers here? Let's say we want to duplicate layers. Okay. I've got ketchup. I like lots of ketchup on here. How do I duplicate that? Again, I can do the same thing where I right click and I look for duplicate layer up here. It's going to ask me what to call it. And I can call it, ketchup, copy, and it's going to make another one. Okay, now that one makes it right on top and in the exact same position, which is helpful sometimes. Okay, so if I click out the eyeball, you'll see I've got another one right on top of there. Okay, so I'm going to just go ahead and Command Z that one just to get rid of that one there. Okay. Another way you can do it is you can grab your ketchup, you can select a layer, and just like you can copy and paste anything else, you can hit Command C, Command V, right up here, your edit commands where you can copy and paste Command C and then paste with Command V as in Victor. So I can grab it and I can say Command C, Command V. That'll also paste it. Now you notice it didn't paste it directly on top of it right beside it. Okay. But it did make it on a new layer when I copy and paste. It pasted to its new layer. Go ahead and hit Command Z there too. Okay. Finally, the fastest way to do this is to grab a layer. If I want to make copies. With my move tool selected, hitting the V on the keyboard to get my move tool, I can go and I can hold down my option key with my move tool. I can hold down my option key and you'll see I get my double cursor and I can drag that out and it's going to make another layer and another copy. So you can see it's making copies there. So that's far faster than doing any of those other options. So that's the one I use the most. Quick keys really save you a lot of time when you got a lot of work to do in Photoshop. All right, let's see. So we can duplicate, we can copy. Merging. Let's say I need to put things together. Let's say I want to, let's take our pickles. Let's say I got my pickles here. I'm going to bring them down here and I'm going to grab a couple of them. Select both those pickles, okay? And I'm going to make some more pickles there and some more pickles. Okay, so I got a bunch of pickles, okay, but now they're on a whole bunch of different layers. Let's say I need to put those together in one layer, which is called merging. Okay, you can merge layers by, again, you can drag over top of them, you can hold shift and select them, you can hold shift and select the image, however you'd like to select them, and then you would merge those. Okay, up here in layer, you have all your layer commands, so you can merge layers. You see it's Command E, that's the way I use most of the time. You can also come over here and right click on here and you'll see merge layers as well. Okay, either way is going to get you the same result where all those layers are now, instead of like 8 separate pickles, I have one layer that has all 8 pickles on it, 6 pickles, excuse me. Okay, so we can merge them. Okay, lastly, we can play with opacity. Okay, now in this case, it's not terribly useful here, but let's say I want to change the opacity. I have that up here. So the opacity is up here in the top. Okay, and I can change the opacity. If you turn that down to 50%, you can see that now my pickles are slightly see-through, about 50% opaque. And if I go all the way down, they will disappear completely. Okay, and then that is non-permanent. I can go right back to where I was at. Okay, so I have opacity. Okay, we also have, get back on my pickles. We also have the fill, which is underneath it. Now the fill is going to look like it does the same thing with opacity, but actually what it's going to do is, like, when you have an effect applied to that, it's going to turn up or turn down that effect depending on what you have. Okay, so a little about that. Right now it just looks like it's turning your opacity up and down. Okay, finally, the last thing that we are going to talk about with our layers is we can make a new layer. Okay, so right down here at the bottom, right between the create group and the trash can, there's a little plus sign in a square. If you hold over top of that, it says create new layer. If you hit that, it will create a new layer. Okay, now when I create a new layer, if I don't have anything that I'm pasting or anything, it's going to create a blank layer, and then I just have a blank layer. Okay, so that is your quick tutorial on layers there. We can turn the eyeballs on and off, we can lock them, we can rename them, we can reorder them, we can select multiple ones, we can group them, we can ungroup them, we can merge them, we can play with their opacity, and we know how to make new layers there. Okay, all right, so if you have any questions, send me an email. Otherwise, have a great day and stay creative.